you love to play lead guitar, but you know you have a lot of room for improvement, here are the essential lead guitar tools and skills to get the solid practice ideas you need on week 4 of Get Moving Guitar. Hey everybody, this is Lee. This is the live version of the weekly podcast, and we're right in the middle of Get Moving Guitar. It's a free podcast course that I've partnered with Positive Grid, and we are having a lot of fun. Each week we're going through a little bit of a section of what makes up a good practice, and then at the end, on week 6, we're going to tie it all together. This one's all about lead guitar. I'm going to go through kind of the important parts of it in just a second. One of the things is we're having a giveaway. If you've signed up to win the Spark amp, I'm still waiting to hear back from Positive Grid as to who the winner was. So I've sent in several emails, and hopefully today we'll get that. And whenever that is, I'll put a podcast out before. But I want to say hi to the folks that are here first before we get started. Let's see here. David's here. Hi, David. How are you doing today? Good to see you. Dean's here. And let's see here. Jason's here too. So we got a few coming in as we get started. This is, 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. It's kind of a new time for us, but it's working out pretty good for me. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about lead guitar a little bit, though. Oh, Marcus is here. Marcus is here from Bavaria. How are you doing, Marcus? Good, great to see you. And Jim is here. Jim from Australia. Great to see you, Jim. Better time for the folks over there in Australia than what we were doing before. Let's see here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, here's the main section. So the tools and skills that we use as lead guitar players. And then we're going to talk about arpeggios and how important arpeggios are to lead playing. And then finally, we're going to end up talking about phrasing and tone a little bit. And then we're going to put it all into practice using the Spark amp and the Spark app as well. Okay, so let's get started. If you have any questions about this, just put them in the comments, and we'll periodically, as we go through today, stop and answer questions as well. Okay, so I am all ready to go. Let's see here. Lead guitar player. What are we talking about with the lead guitar player? Some people, they don't... that's kind of a band thing, the guy who plays the solo. Some people don't really understand what a lead guitar player's responsibilities are. And we're responsible for playing solos, fills in song 2, in the song 2, in between, in the cracks where the vocals, where there is no singing. Sometimes prepared melodies, kind of like Brian May and Queen. We also do harmony. And counterpoint to other melodies that are going on too. So as well as a big part of rhythm guitar as well as a lead guitar player. We always have, a lot of people when they come in new, they say, I want to just play the solos all the time. But, a lot of my experience in being a lead guitar player for a long time is I played a lot of rhythm guitar in the spaces where there wasn't any lead guitar. As a lead guitar player, your approach to music is different, though, than someone who strictly plays chords all the time. Well, when a rhythm guitar player, which we talked about last week, deals kind of in blocks of time. Okay, so you play A major, and how long do we do that? A major for 4 measures, right? So A major for 4 measures. Okay, so I've got that. There's my first block. And then D major for 4 minutes, and you just have block of a chord, block of a chord, block of a chord. It's very. Let's see here. I'll get to that. I just saw someone. I just spoke about who won the Spark app. Did that happen already? Yeah. I'm waiting to hear from Positive Grid. They're the people who hosted all of that and have not got back to me yet. As soon as I know who the winner is, I'll put a special podcast out, which I've never done before. Usually it's always on Wednesdays, but as soon as I get that information, I will get it out to everyone. I've put several emails in, and I'm just waiting to hear back. Okay, so we were talking about rhythm players think in blocks of time. Lead guitar players, we think about the line. We think linearly as we go, the melody line. Very similar to what a vocalist or a horn player, saxophone player would think. We're weaving our notes through the blocks of chords. We're kind of surfing waves of chord progressions that goes by with our scales and our licks. We create tension if we want. We can release that tension. It doesn't matter where we're in. We have control over the line. Whether you're playing a melody that was written in advance or you're improvising, we can phrase things in a certain way that speaks to the listener and elevates the song up to new levels. So let's talk about what do we need? What are the tools and the basic skills that a lead guitar player needs? The first one, scale patterns. Why do we need scale patterns? In any instrument, there are good things and bad things. There's pros and cons. One of the pros for guitar players is the way that the fretboard is set up. It's a pro and it's a con. But at first, it's pretty confusing, right? We have 6 strings and we have all of these frets. Each fret on a string is a note. It's a lot. It's very confusing at first. And then when we start to learn to tune, we realize that the guitar overlaps itself. There's many different ways of playing the same exact note on a fretboard, which is different than most instruments, okay? Find several ways of playing the same thing, the same phrase. Here, 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 here. And because of the different thicknesses of the types of strings, you have your choice. When you play a lick here, let's do C. Right? Do you hear the difference in tone, the difference in timbre, however you want to pronounce it? I'm playing the same exact lick, but where I voice it on the guitar has a completely different effect. The con to this, the bad part of this, is that this is a big grid of notes. It's built chromatically. It's very difficult to wrap your head around, the entire fretboard. So we have to take it in chunks. And that's another one of the pros of playing lead guitars. When you find the needed notes that you want in one area, you're pretty accessible to a pattern in that place for a certain scale or a certain sound. As you find the same needed notes in whatever you're playing and you move up, you start to see new patterns in different places. So, let's say you found all the patterns for the notes you need in the key of C, for example. One of the other great things about the guitar is, not every song's in the key of C. When I move to another key, I can take the same patterns that I've learned and slide them into the new key. So I don't need to know the names of the notes to get started at first, although that's a very good thing to do eventually. But at first, we can play the same pattern and we will get a major scale. Say it's C major scale. If we slide it up 2, it becomes same pattern, but it becomes a D major scale. Okay? These are really nice things to have. If you've played other instruments, you realize how different the approach is to getting all of these different scale patterns right there. The order of the scale patterns always stays the same, and it's a lot less work. If you learn one key, and we're talking about 5 patterns, you learn them all just by sliding them around. So with scale patterns, we have different ways of doing it. They call them systems. The first scale pattern system I recommend is the 5 pattern system, and all of the coaching students and academy members, they know we learn the 5. I don't call it the caged because I'm not a huge fan of caged. I like caged at the beginning, because it's based around these 5 patterns. But as it goes on, there's not a lot of, it gets confusing, especially when you get into minor and the way they name things. I'm not a fan of that at all. But the 5 pattern system I am a fan of, and the reason why is because it's based around these common chord shapes. because you associate these scale patterns with chord shapes that you most likely learn at the very beginning when you first start playing guitar, it's very easy to see the strong notes in your scale patterns. These are the chord tones. And you can see these shapes even as you're playing single lines. It's very easy to marry the two ideas, chords and scales, arpeggios and scales together. And I have a blog post about that. If you go to the show notes page for today, it was an early blog post. It was called Guitar Scales, a 5-Pattern System. It tells you how to do everything about that, how to get a lot of mileage from that. Then the next one is the 7-pattern system. This is where we break the neck of the guitar up into 7 places. This is also known as 3 NPS, 3 notes per string. And the way it's constructed, see, I started at the 3rd fret, but the highest note is up here at the 8th fret. So when you take these patterns here, it's spread out. They take up more real estate on the fretboard. They tend to climb up the guitar into different positions. So it's a different tool for a different job. They're great for moving. Say if you're down low and you need to get up high on the fretboard pretty quickly, you can use these 3 note per string patterns to quickly move and crawl your way up to another higher area of the guitar. It's great for moving around the fretboard. But because there's 3 notes per string, this system is great for hammer-ons and pull-offs, which is, I'm going to get a different tone on this. I'm going to use my use the Spark tone engine here. I'm going to get the lead sound. Doesn't fight you as much. You can get rid of that delay as well. It's great for legato guitar. Most of those, I was just picking the first note and hammering on or pulling off the other notes on the string. Really wonderful for that. I'd have in the show notes, you can also find the link to a blog post called it's a giveaway for 3 NPS. 3 notes per string. There's other patterns as well. There's other systems as well. There's the 2-pattern system, which is kind of like an Alan Holdsworth style. He had a really different approach to learning scale patterns. I've seen the 12-pattern system taught, where there's a different pattern for every fret, which is, if you can do it, that's great, but it seems it's a little bit much to wrap your head around. But those are the ones that I use. I use the 5-pattern system for kind of my general playing, and then I will use the 3 notes per string, the 7-pattern system, for playing fast, for playing legato, and for moving. Kind of use it as a different tool for a different application. What scales are we going to play? What scales do lead guitar players need to play? Well, there's lots of scales. If you've ever bought a scale pattern book, right, and they make sure they go through all of the different modes and all of the different scales, and there's a ton of different sounds. But if you go through popular music or rock music or country, the music that is listened to over the past 30 years, you're going to find some things that are very similar. You're going to find major scales, minor scales, major pentatonic scales, and minor pentatonic scales, and something called the blues scale, which is just an added note to the minor pentatonic. Each one of these scales, if you have them at the ready, will make sure that you have the tools you need to play the vast majority of songs at a moment's notice. When you think about that, okay, well, we have 5 patterns, all of the different keys on the guitar, and then we need to know 4 different scales themselves: major, minor, major pentatonic, minor pentatonic. Seems like it's a lot of memorizing. It's not. even though they each have a different sound and they're best used in different situations, they all boil down to the major scale. And so if you spend a lot of time learning the 5 patterns of the major scale, once you do that, the rest of them come pretty easy. The minor scale uses the major scale pattern. So if I take, let's see here, turn it down just a little bit there. There's pattern 1, C major. Now if I took the same pattern but started on the 6th degree of the scale, the A, and made that the new tonal center, hear the difference? It takes on a sadder sound than that C major happy, A minor, the relative minor, it's sad, okay? Then we move on to the major pentatonic. That's the full major scale, but we just get rid of 2 notes, the 4th and the 7th degree. So C full, C major pentatonic. We're playing the same notes, we just took 2 out. Very easy. Minor pentatonic, it's the full minor scale, which we just played before. We take the 2nd and the 6th degree out of that. We've got our minor pentatonic scale. In fact, the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic look exactly the same. You're just using a different degree of the scale for your strong note. So everything boils down to learning these first 5 patterns. Once you have those, it's all just putting them to work, using them in a different situation, and you can get all of the big 4 sounds and a lot of other sounds as well. If you want to get your scale patterns together, that scales the 5 pattern system is the way to go for that as well. So let's talk about some more mileage from these. If you're just learning the 5 patterns, and you can get the 4 different sounds. It doesn't stop there. We can, moving the strong note to 6, we can also add like the blue note. There's a lot of different things that we can do. But what we just demonstrated in the key of C by going to the A and getting our minor scale, that's something called a mode. Okay, and basically what a mode is we can move our strong note to any of the notes in the scales to get new sounds. And these modes, you've heard them before, they have very fancy Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. They sound very fancy, but they're just the major scale starting on a different note. Each one of these has a different quality. You've heard them before in different songs, and it can be used to expand your tonal palette, right? The different sounds that you can get as a lead guitar player. All that boiled down from learning these 5 patterns. Okay, so it opens up, and there's different places we can go. If you'd like to know a little bit more about modes, that was episode 65, explaining modes for guitar, and we have a blog post that goes along with that. Okay, so we've got our scale patterns. We understand how the guitar works. We understand how to put this in different keys and get the big 4 sounds. What's going to make us start to really lock in with the music? And that's arpeggios. And arpeggios, when we start to talk about arpeggios are the notes of a chord. And the notes of a chord played one at a time. So a C major chord, or chord arpeggio. So, have you ever tried to improvise solo over a backing track or a loop, and you knew you're playing the right scale, but it didn't sound strong? It may have not sounded great to you. Certain notes that you played didn't work as well as other notes. Or did you just land on one of the notes and it didn't sound correct at all? It sounded sour. What I did is I would kind of cover my tracks. If I'm playing over C and I ended up on a B, right, which is a little bit of sour sound, I would keep going until I found a strong note, right? When you can hear that, when you can start to hear in your playing that certain notes sound better than others, even though you're in the right scale, in the right key, this is a good thing. You've just entered the world of strong notes and weak notes. Just the fact that you could tell that something didn't sound great, it's a milestone for your playing. It means that your ear is starting to develop. And the common way to learn lead guitar is you see what the song you're playing is, you find out what key it's in, you slide your scale pattern in that, and you just go, right? It's an easy way to start. It's fun, but it doesn't take long to find out when you start to develop that ear. We're going to be dealing with something matching our note choices to chords. At any given time in a song, your scale notes are being played at the same time as some sort of a chord. They have to match. They don't have to match, but you have to know how to match them. And then you can decide not to match them if you want a tense sound. But you need to know first how to match your note choices that you play when you improv or write something out to whatever chord's playing at the time. And the problem with this is that in chord progressions, chords change every few seconds. Each time a chord changes, you get a new set of strong notes, which equals notes that are grounded, right? That's what I mean by strong. They feel resolved. And those are the notes that make up the chord that's playing at the time. They've matched perfectly. Hopefully, the strong notes are contained in the scale pattern that you're playing. And the other notes that you're playing that aren't in the chord, we're going to call those your weak notes. So arpeggios are strong notes, everything else are the weak notes. And you can use weak notes to set up your strong notes, to travel to other strong notes in the scale. Try it sometime. Just loop a single chord, play your scale. The notes that are in the chord sound best over that chord. The others sound a little off. I'm going to switch back to clean so you can really hear this. I'm going to save that for when we do the backing track with the spark a little bit. Okay, so you've got these chords. They're changing every second. And what's your new challenge? Your new challenge is that your strong notes change when the chord changes and the weak notes change. Even though you're playing the same scale pattern, everything is messed around. So looping two chords is the next step for that. So you just go back and forth between two chords, find a strong note over your first chord. Then when the second chord comes by, play that again. See if that matches to the second chord or not, if it sounds great. At that point, you start to realize, oh, okay, I can't just play anything that I want. I have to start thinking chord to chord. So that brings us to chord and arpeggio knowledge. The more you understand how chords are constructed, the better your melodies are going to be. And the better you're going to be able to play over chord changes. As the chords go by, you'll be able to use the strong notes and the weak notes in an intelligent way. And it's not left up to chance anymore. It sounds intentional. So what's the best way to practice? This is key to getting better at lead guitar, is practicing your arpeggios. They're the chord notes linearly one at a time. And because the guitar is such a visual instrument, you're going to be able to see these arpeggio patterns pretty quickly because you've already learned those 5 scale patterns in the 5 pattern things. Finding out more about arpeggios, you can head on over to the link I have in the show notes. And this is Arpeggios Explained. That was episode 127. Phrasing. This is what I'm trying to get to here. The last tool for the lead guitar is called phrasing. What's phrasing? Phrasing, well, let's talk about language. What's a phrase in a language? A phrase in a language is just a small group of words that get your point across. It can be part of a sentence, or it doesn't even have to be in a sentence at all. It can just be a group of words that it's understood what's being said. The important thing that it's a small group of words that are expressive. They communicate well. In music, a phrase is a small melody that communicates well to the listeners. And it can be part of a larger melody or not. It can be on its own. The important thing is that it conveys the emotion that the performer is trying to achieve. I've found that in music, people kind of throw around the word phrasing a lot. They use it in two ways. One is in when you're making solos up, when you're improvising, or you're writing something out, and that deals with how you're constructing your licks, right? How you construct and perform a short melody. But the other way that you hear about it a lot is when you're a performer, like a classical performer or someone who's playing off the written page a lot. And that deals with how a short piece of music is presented, how they add emotion to a lick or a musical small section there, how they add personality to it, vibrato, messing with the time a little bit, laying things back, taking a standard melody that you'd read on a page and making it your own. So I've heard it used both of those ways. In both instances, they deal with connecting to the listener. That's the important part, playing something that speaks to us. So think about it. If you talk on and on in a monotone voice, you're going to lose the attention of everyone. Everyone listening will tune out. We're conditioned to hear the voice, and we're conditioned to hear singing it and it going up and down. But there's another thing. Singers take breaths. That sounds natural to us. We can't just play for a half hour without stopping. And as an instrumentalist, if you don't stop every once in a while, you're going to start to affect the listener in a negative way. It's going to start to feel like you're running out of breath. Singers use dramatic pauses. They use inflection. They accentuate certain notes, certain words, certain syllables. They swoop up into notes. They have vibrato and lots of other attention-getting devices. So how you can work on this is try listening to your favorite singer sing a phrase. Then pick up your guitar and try and imitate that. What are the things that you're doing to make it sound as much like that vocal passage as you can? Those are things that you should be throwing into your improv and into your written melodies as well. Let's talk about tone for the lead guitar player. Same way that we imitate vocals in phrasing, we also learn a lot from singers to get our guitar tones. Take a listen to your favorite lead guitar player and make a few notes about their tone. Is it a short and percussive sound? Is it sharp? Or is it a mellow, like Eric Johnson, a mellow and sustaining sound? There's no right and wrong answer for tone. Just like there's no right and wrong answer for singers, who your favorite singers, or what type of voice you like to listen to. But what we can do is we can see what's common, and we can make a decision if that's the type of tone that works for us. I've been using the Spark app, going through the tone cloud, all the different tones, and learning a lot about different lead guitar tones, and seeing and hearing, okay, I've got the sound, it sounds good. Well, what's making that up? What's the different amps? What's the delay? What's the reverb? Is there a compressor on it? What drive pedals are on there? What can that do for your tone? And how can that put you in the ballpark of what a great lead tone sounds like? So there's a lot you can learn from just the way this is set up. And being able to just kind of flip through them, try them out, record them, see how they fit in the mix. It helps you make decisions on how to find your voice for lead guitar. But the number one thing for a lead guitar player, the thing that's the most important, no matter what direction you go, is you need to be heard. And one of the first big moments, like an aha moment for me when I was playing in my first band, was that the sounds that I played at home when I was practicing never worked when I got into a band or when I was recording. They never sounded as good as they did at home. I would get that tone to sound as great as I could. I put a ton of low end on it. I put tons of reverb and delay. It would sound huge. But then when I would get to rehearsal, I have to keep turning up and turning up and turning up. And it seemed like I would turn up, I still couldn't hear myself, right? And finally, to get myself to be able to be heard, it would be so loud that I was drowning out the band. And I learned that when you're in a ensemble situation, loudness is not as important as cutting through, finding your place where you fill out the sound of the band. I found that certain sounds cut through, so I didn't have to be so loud. And the things that were holding me back from that is having lots of bass, lots of low end. That created mush, right? It made it impossible for you to hear what I was playing as opposed to what the bass player was playing. It made it hard to distinguish the different sounds of the band. And home recording, which is something that I would hope you would all dabble in at least a little bit, that helped me with this big time. I would see when I'd have some sort of a track and I would play over that track, and I would mess with the EQ to make it sound like it fit in. I'd see that the moves that I was making on the EQ worked live as well. So I was always making a cut in the bass, and I was boosting the upper mids a little bit to make it sound good with the track. I said, well, how about I try that when I go sit in with my band, And so I would lower the bass a little bit and add a little bit of mids. And all of a sudden, when I was in, sitting there jamming, I noticed I wasn't having to turn up so loud to hear myself. I fit in like a puzzle piece, really nice. It made it a lot easier to fit in with the group. So before we jump into practice, why don't you head over, if you've got a Spark amp and the app, head over to the Tone Cloud and check out a lot of different lead guitar patches today and see which ones suit your style and still cut through really nicely in a mix. I'm going to go back to the chat for a minute before we get to the practice and all of the downloads and everything like that. Let's see here. I'm going to go back. I've missed a few folks as we go. Let's see here. Facebook user. For some reason in Facebook, you have to allow them to use your name on this. But it said, would love to watch it, but at work, have a great show, and I'll catch up soon. No problem. No problem. Catch up when you can. Michael's here. Hi, Michael. How are you doing? Justin's here. Great to see you, Justin. Nolan's here. Hi, Nolan. A lot of new faces. That's great. Another Facebook users at work, but tuning in as long as I can. No problem. No problem at all. Dean says, great to see some new names here. Yes, this is new time is bringing in some new folks. That's awesome. Dean uploaded the show notes link for everyone. That's cool. Is it, I don't want to mess your name, Eggy, I think, E.G. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but it says, yo, what's up? And asks, can you tell me how to EQ a Boss Metal Zone? Mine sounds like garbage. They're a very tough pedal to get to sound great. That one and, oh, what is that one? I've got the Mega Distortion. I've got the Boss Mega. So that the Metal Zone and the Mega Distortion for me are very tough to do that. They have, I think it's an active EQ, but the pedal itself is scooped, So it from whenever I never owned one. I've played through a ton of them, and I would always get a brittle sound. No matter what I did, I would get a brittle sound. It's missing mids. And they were, and it didn't, some Boss pedals when you, let me go to like a high gain or a lead sound. Here, let's go to some Boss pedals. When you, let me get this out of the way here. When you roll your volume down, they just cut off. So it's like distorted, and then just shuts down. But if something like the OD3, those pedals, you notice when you start to lower your volume on your guitar, you get different tones. It kind of just pulls back. It's kind of like playing into an amp. Those pedals that Boss had, and a couple other companies that have too, where it's so in your face, it's really hard to get rid of that sound of the pedal. That Metal Zone has the scooped sound. I would try adding mids in there, lowering the highest highs on those, and watching the bass too. So everything that you would think to do for, a really good sound, if I went to an amp and I was trying to get a good metal sound or a good high gain sound, I would pull the mids down a little bit and I would raise the highs up and put a little bit of low in. So like a V EQ shape, but because that pedal has that built in already, if you do more of that, it just becomes brittle and tough to deal with. So I would do the opposite. I would do it like a frowny face, right? I would push the mids up and bring the highs and the lows down to get maybe an even sound. And then you're going to have someplace that you can start with. That would be a good video to do. I might get my hands on one of those and try and see how we could start making that pedal sound good. The DS1, the Boss DS1, it's not quite to the extreme as the Metal Zone. You can turn down and you can kind of get past that in your face Boss sound with an EQ in your face, and I get more results from a DS1 or that style, or any of the overdrive ones than the Metal Zone. And then let's see here. Facebook user said maybe an EQ pedal would be useful to shape the tone in a live situation. Oh, Chris, that's Chris. Hey, Chris, good to see you, man. Good to see you. EQ pedals are awesome, and I go years without using one, and then when I put one live, I can't believe I threw that out, off my board for years. I love if I've got an amp that's got a effects loop in the back. Putting an EQ pedal in the effects loop is wonderful. It's wonderful. In fact, I did it with I had a Hot Rod DeVille for years, and I was using the effects loop on it because I had a harmonizer. I was doing 2 guitar parts with that, and I had a MIDI pedal. But because I normally wouldn't use the effects loop, but because I was doing that to get these harmonies, I threw an EQ in there, and it just, the whole amp opened up. You're past the preamp stage, so you have that EQ pedal. So it's like it's like you're EQing the way the speakers perform. Not your distortions and how you set up, but how the overall thing. So EQ pedals are great. I've had a bunch of different ones. I've had the Boss, the GE7, I think it's Fish and Chips, the Dane Electro, the Morley. I've had a bunch of different ones, and all of them I got good results from. But you can go crazy with EQ pedals too. And that may be something for what we were talking about before with the Metal Zone. Using a Metal Zone, an EQ pedal with a Metal Zone could. I have never done that, but maybe that could help shape that tone a little bit more. Okay, so let's get into practice. Well, how are we going to practice some lead guitar stuff? Lately, I've been very much liking putting a whole week of practice over one backing track, right? Angel's here. Hey man, how you? Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. I saw your comment pop up on YouTube, but I didn't have my hands free. I couldn't respond. Great to see you. Great to see you. Let's see here. So we're gonna practice, and what I'm trying to do, and you'll see this as well today, is I'm liking picking a backing track for the week. And all the practice that I'm doing is on that backing track. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. And that way I can just plug in to right now I'm using the Spark amp, plug into that, get the backing track for the week, and then pull up my PDF that has everything I need to work on. And it's all together. It makes it super, super easy. And so let's see here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just like that. I'm going to go to the music section of the app, find a backing track, open up the PDF, and get practicing. So this week, I just wanted to pick something easy because with lead guitar, there's so many different avenues that you can go. I picked a minor blues, okay, a minor blues progression. And that's kind of like B.B. King, Thrill Is Gone. Another minor blues is Long Train Running. I mean, that's a rock song, but it's over a blues progression, minor blues progression. So you guys, if you haven't gone over to the download site that I've put up for this whole 6-week podcast course, that should be also in the description as well. And you can go ahead and get these lesson sheets and backing tracks at lots of different tempos that you could play this for. I'm going to head over to that right now. Let's see here. I thought I had shared this originally. Okay. Let's see. All right. So week 4, these are the chords we're going to use. Let me go back to clean for just a second. We're going to use a D minor 7 right here at the 5th fret, the one is very common that people use. Bar chord there. The next chord we're going to use is G minor 7. And then it'll go back to the D minor 7. And then we'll go to a B flat 7 to an A7 and back to a D minor 7. I'm going to check my tuning real quick. On the Spark amp, the tap tempo button, the one that's flashing all the time, if you just hold that down for about 3 seconds, and it becomes a tuner. There it was, just low string. If you ever are tuning your low string, you can't get it to tune up right, try using your bridge pickup to tune it with. You'll get a more accurate result. The neck pickup on that low string, the low string has, it's very, very magnetic with the pole piece. If you have magnetic pole pieces, it pulls on the low string, and it gives. A lot of people say they hear wolf tones and all sorts of stuff when they play up high on a strat on the low string, and it's very close to this middle pickup here, and it keeps it from traveling as much as it kind of pulls it out of tune a little bit. So I always check my tuning, especially on a low string with my back pickup. You don't have that problem. So we had D minor 7, G minor 7. There's a voicing right there, right next to it, and B flat 7, A7, back to D minor 7. Okay, and here's our chord progression. Right, so we're going to play D minor 7 for 4. Then we're going to go on the next line to G minor 7. That was back to D minor 7. And the last line we have B flat 7 for 1 and A7 for 1. Then D minor 7. And the turnaround is A7. That's our chord progression. A standard, easy, minor blues in the key of D. And here's the patterns we're going to use. We're going to be up at the 10th fret. We're going to be using the blues scale. D minor blues scale, pattern 1. And basically where it's different Let me get a better sound. There we go. You can see very easily right here when we add this second finger on the 11th fret of the A string, and then also when we add this fourth finger on the 13th fret of the G string to our regular minor box minor pentatonic scale. So there's regular pentatonic. It's a sound we've all heard. Right, so that's what makes it a blues scale instead of a minor pentatonic scale. Just adding that one note in. That note is a flat 5, or you could think of it as a sharp 4. It's the note in between the 4th and 5th degree of the scale. We're also going to be using the natural minor note, the full scale. So we're staying in pattern 1. We're not going crazy and going through all the patterns. We're going to focus on these this week. Now what I'm going to do is I've got all of the lessons for this week on this PDF right here. Get Moving Guitar Week 4. You can download that. Guitar spelled incorrectly right here. G-U-T-I-A-R. Goodness gracious. I'll go back and fix that later. Here's the 4 chords we're using. 85. So I'm going to head over here. Let's change the camera here, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the music notes icon right there at the bottom, and then I'm going to go up to search at the top. And then I've already put this in, but you can type in Get Moving Guitar or Get Moving Guitar Track. I put in last time. Let's see here. And I'll press search for Get Moving Guitar Track, and week 4 pops up. So it's the very top one right there. So I'll press week 4. Here we go. All right, started playing it. This is our backing track for week 4. Lead guitar Kickstart. It's already got the chords figured out. Some of these I have to go back and fix a little bit. But this is going to be our backing track right here. That easy. I just search for something and it's right there. Let me turn it down just a little bit. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go through here. Let me get this more even looking. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to let this play, and we're going to take a look over here at our sheet. So our sheet here, if you look at our first line, we're just going through the minor blues scale, okay? These are quarter notes. What you might ask is, well, I'm not running through it straight. What happens is I'm trying to put the strong note on the first beat of each 2-measure phrase. So if you look at the first one starts on 10, that's our strong note. I went past and then came back so that on the first beat of the 3rd measure, I'm starting on a strong note again. Now on the next line, I'm starting on the strong note. Come back to the D. I'm always trying to line the strong note of the key I'm in with the most important part of the rhythm. You know, the first beat on the measures that change chords a good bit. So that's our blues scale. Let's go through our natural minor scale. Here we go. It's just quarter notes. you'll see there I'm doubling some notes right halfway through the phrase because I've already made it to the D note here at the end of measure 2, and I want to start with that note when we switch measures. So I doubled it up right there. You don't have to do that, but it sure makes it sound more constant as we go. Part 3, we're going to do some sequences. So we're kind of using this as we go through this as kind of a technique exercise, but also knowing our scales a little bit better by using sequences. So the first part, let's see here. So we're doing, this is a 4-note sequence. We're going up 4 notes and then moving to the second degree of the scale, go up 4 notes and then the third degree of the scale. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. And then we can also go back on a descending sequence. That's part 4. We'll try that right now. 1, 2, ready, go. Now you can double these up. So say quarter notes, this is easy stuff for you. Do it as 8th notes. You can even do it as 16th notes if you really can get into that. So let's do the same thing now. We're going to do some sort of a sequence. We're doing the full scale. Okay, so for this, start over again. For this, we're going to be jumping notes. We're going to jump one and then come back one. And then we can go backwards here. Let's try that. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so this is kind of getting used to the scale patterns. You can do this for any patterns. I'm just picking pattern 1 just to make it easy here. Now we move into the next section, is working on our arpeggios. So I've got the scale pattern here. Let me make this a little bit smaller so it'll fit in, all the chords will fit in the screen. Here. There we go. Okay, so this is the whole 12-bar pattern here. We're going to go through the arpeggios in, let's see here, right where pattern 1 is. So let's go back, start again. You can see how you can just turn the track on and just keep practice these things going straight through the PDF. Here we go. So D minor 7 arpeggio first. G minor 7. Hear how I'm perfectly going along with the chords. Back on D minor 7. B flat 7. A7. D minor 7. A7. Kind of fudged up that A7, but let's see here. So that A7 coming back, D minor 7. And then we've got, you can hear those tones. That's leading into, that's the third of A7. That note leads into the strong note of the whole thing, the D right there. So that's working on your arpeggios. Now it's time to start working on some lines, okay? Some simple lines. So here we have, let's see here. Let's see. So when I said earlier, trying to listen to vocals and come up with some really easy melodies that are going to, get your point across, and then later on try and make them a little bit more complex. So this is what I did, was I just sung a nonsense ba 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 ba, that kind of thing over top of the backing track, and this is what I came up with. We'll do that one more time. That turned out to just be the blues scale. That was what it was in my mind when I was listening to this, and I figured it out from there. You can do that. I used to do that with like Led Zeppelin songs. I learned the song, and then I learned what Robert Plant was doing. I'm trying to figure his vocals out as well. But the last thing I want us to kind of work on is one of the other jobs that a lead guitar player has, and that is doing fills. And that's something people have a hard time with. A lot of times at blues clubs, you'll hear this. And even with harmonica, if you hear harmonica players, they have the same problem as lead guitar players when they're supposed to be playing fills and supporting a singer, right? And what happens is they just play over everything. And there's no space for you to listen to the singer. You're always distracted because there's some sort of other instrument. It could be lead guitar, harmonica. It just happens a lot. I've noticed that a lot. Learning how to play fills. And it really boils down to rhythm. When to play, right? When do you have those times to fill something in that adds to the song, makes the song better? Elevates the song as well. So here we'll take a look at this. This is, if you notice, when I play D minor 7 first, right? It's a rest. I'm not playing anything. And then on the second beat of the second measure, let's see here. I play a little bit of a melodic line. I'm not playing a heavy blues and attracting attention. I'm making something that goes somewhere. There's the tonal center right there. And then we have, let's see here. Can you hear it going to that G minor 7? This note right here, which is a B flat, that's the third of G minor 7. I led into that chord. And then let's see here. That takes us back to the D minor 7. And then we have play a little bit of chords over the B flat 7 to A7. Just two notes from the chords. And then it comes back to D minor 7. I'm not playing anything. And then we have, let's see here, little tag at the end. So everywhere I'm playing is not the featured part that's leaving room for the vocals. I'm playing in the cracks. I'm starting on notes that you wouldn't normally start on. So I'm going to play the track, play what I just played along with this. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. to me, that's a great example of something that someone who's playing fills behind a singer would play. There's a lot of long sustaining notes when it is being played over where you would hear singing, and a lot of playing in the cracks where you might not be hearing someone play. So this is a good example for that, and that's what I have prepared for you this week. This backing track, I don't remember what the tempo was for this, but I think we'll go from 70 all the way up to like 120 on this. You have your choice of all the different tempos to do. And it's super easy to do it with this as well. Remember, I will be getting back to everyone about the winner of the amp as soon as I hear from them. I'm going to keep emailing until I can get some stuff. Okay, so let's see here. I missed a few comments, and then we'll take off and grab some lunch in a few minutes. So Angel was here. Angel said, YouTube. Let's see. Let me go back to. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to go full screen with this. There we go. And now I can see what's going on. Jason said, bonus with an EQ is it works as a boost. Right. And it in the effects loop can work as a master volume if you don't have one in the amp. Yeah, and also a volume pedal in your effects loop. I did that for years, which if you have a volume pedal in, say, your overdrive, right? Depending on where you put it, in front or behind, it serves a different function. If you put it in front of an overdrive pedal or in front of a dirty amp, right? It's going to be almost like your distortion knob that you can set with your feet. You can clean it up or go forward. But if you put it afterwards, it's volume, right? It can set the level. Doesn't change the tone, just change the volume. And I would do that in the effects loop of a lot of different amps in a band situation where I wanted to be able to play, like fills, like the last one that I just played, and I don't want to be super loud. I can set that with my foot. Then when it's time for me to be out front, I can just push it all the way forward and go. So yeah, an EQ as well. You've got like on the Boss, the very first slider. I think it's the very last slider is your volume. Yeah, and you can push the power tubes on that pretty well. Angel says, minor and major high cycling help me. All right, man, let's help. Let's see what you said. You said, Lee, I know the 5 positions, but have trouble moving them to keys that don't root on dot frets. Really hard for me. Any tips? Yeah, I would start. What that means is that there's some foundational stuff missing before you get to learning your 5 positions in different keys. And that is being comfortable playing on notes that don't have the dots, right? And this is always going to be something. I know when I play in the key of B, even though I've been doing this for years, I naturally want to go to the key of C for some reason, because that's on the dot on the A string right here. But in the key of B, it's always feels like it's just a little in places of the guitar I'm not used to. But what I would do in that instance is I would start to learn the notes on the fret. I would take some time to really, really be comfortable with the notes on the fretboard. Spending time. In fact, I would start with like F sharp, right? That's another B or F sharp, and just run those scale patterns and say the names of the notes out loud as you go through your scale patterns. Okay, so we're going to try and get our brain and our fingers and our eyes of what we're seeing on the guitar, all 3 things to come together. So I would take a step back. Hope this made sense. I would take a step back from trying to really put all these patterns in there, pick one key that's a difficult key, spend a lot of time in it, and learn the notes that are under your fingers in the pattern. I think that would help you a lot. Marcus says, great material. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Facebook user, that may be Chris. I don't know. Love that last one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Angel says, got to go back to work. I got to go get some lunch. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. This was fun. We've got 2 more next week. is we're going to be doing songs. We're going to be talking about getting your songs together. And then the following week, we're going to tie everything together and how we can take everything we learned each week of these 6 weeks, put it into a daily practice, and move forward from there. Okay, everybody, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks to David and Dean, Jason, Marcus, and Jim, Chris, Michael, Justin, and Nolan. Is it EG or A? I'm not sure. EGI. Let me know how to pronounce that, man. I don't want to mess that up. But it's great to see you, Angel. Let's see here, and a few Justins. Just said thanks. Looking forward to get to practice. Cool. Yeah. And I just I was waiting last night to get word from Positive Grid. The podcast goes out, the audio podcast goes out at 3 a.m. Eastern time. And I've been waiting to get the results from that, and they haven't gotten back to me yet. So I got that podcast. I put in a little, if you listen to the audio, it says, this is Future Lee telling you that when I get the information, I'll relay it to everyone. So about 2:30, 3 o'clock is when that went out. And I didn't have time. I just had to go to bed after that. But I woke up first thing, and I've got all the lesson materials in the download site. So if you go ahead and join up there, you can grab all of these materials. I got it done this morning. And Jim said thank you, and Jason said thank you. And thank you, everybody. And I will see you, coaching students. I'll see you on Friday. And I'm looking forward to doing this live next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. See you soon. Bye-bye.